Men's basketball. John, thanks for coming on. How are you today?
Morning, Steve and Paulie. Nice to talk to you.
Nice to talk to you as well. So, we started the show, laying out Stanford's metrics this year, 14-6 overall, 6-3 in conference play, tied for fifth right now with SMU in the ACC. They've, for the most part, they've beaten the teams they're supposed to beat, and for the most part, they've lost to the teams they were supposed to lose to. There have been some exceptions with both of those things, including a win at North Carolina. Through 20 games, I would imagine you got a pretty good feel for this team. How good are they? How good is Stanford this season?
I have to say, guys, better than I thought. It's had some dry years in basketball. Of course, maybe you guys might remember mid-'90s to mid-'00s, Stanford had a run of 11 straight NCAA tournaments.
Sure.
They were number one ranked in multiple of those years, number one seed in multiple of those years. Got to the Front Row once in 1998, in Elite Eight another time, a couple of Sweet 16s. But since 2002, since 07-08, when Stanford had the Lopez twins, Brooke and Robin Lopez, who Brooke's still playing in the NBA now, 15, 16 years later, only one NCAA tournament since 07-08, and that was in 2013, 2014. And the expectations haven't been high around here, but I think 14-6 is better than a lot of objective folks, including me, thought, or try to be objective anyway. It's been anchored by Maxime Renaud. He's 7'1" center, 4-year guy who really came on last year, sort of particularly late, and has just been tremendous this year. I'm sure you guys know the numbers, 20 and 11, and the shot blocking is up, and ACC Player of the Week, I want to say 3 times now. So he has just been there, guys, every night, home and road, including with the travel. And so his consistency and being a force at the 5 position really has I think, sort of upped everybody else. It's like, when you play pickup and you feel like you're on a good team, 3-on-3 or 5-on-5. I think the other guys around him have played off him very, very well. Kyle Smith, the first-year coach, said, we're going to go through Maxime, and he's been true to that. And you got other guys like Isaiah Sellers, who's the 6'5" wing, number 2 scorer, shooting 50% overall from the field, which for a wing is outstanding, and 43% from 3. So it's been just kind of a nice coming together of pieces around the big guy, Renaud. And so we'll see if it continues.
Yeah, I was reading up on him, before we came on the air today, and I didn't realize just how close he is with Wemby, from their days in France. Apparently, they're like chess partners, and they know each other pretty well. What is his ceiling, Renaud's ceiling, when it comes to the next level and when he moves on to the NBA?
Well, what's really cool about this year, guys, is that, college basketball, you see sort of evolution within seasons. And for me, the evolution, kind of with a smirk and a chuckle, is Maxime Renaud on the draft boards. Some of them still sort of in a silly fashion have him late second round, and I think he's a first round pick. Maybe 10 through 20. Again, it's just my personal opinion. Although I've watched a lot of college basketball in 36 years of doing this job. He just keeps raising the ceiling. He is hitting threes. He is a weapon from 3, as I think maybe your fans who watch highlights of Stanford this year can attest. And it's top of the key, corners, whatever. So you got to go out and guard him. But he can face up a little bit now. He up fakes and he goes past people. Down low, the shot blocking has increased. He's 7'1", and that's a deterrent in the paint. And he wants it. He's playing hard, not over enthusiastic or prone to up and down, but just kind of the emotional leader of this team at the 5 position. So the ceiling keeps being raised. We've seen all kinds of scouts, NBA scouts at Maples now, and so I think what I'm watching now is for those draft boards to be revised to put Renaud somewhere, I think, in the sort of the 10 to 20 range. Who knows? But people know about his connection with Wembanyama. You got to think that San Antonio would like to put those two together. If nothing else, they could go through an NBA season as buddies of the grind that is the 82 games. So the ceiling keeps being raised for the 7'1" guy, and like I said, it's fun to have seen this and to see what he might do in the remaining couple months here.
You know, John, you brought up the NCAA tournament a minute ago. And again, you look at Stanford's resume right now, and they're 69 in the net, and they're tied for 5th in the conference. And, you know, they're kind of hanging around. They're within striking distance. Do you think it's realistic that this year, you know, could end up, you know, if they get hot here down the stretch, is it realistic this team could make the NCAA tournament as an at-large team?
Well, again, you have to understand, with one of these in the last 15 years after it being an every year occurrence, you know, those of us who've been around the program a long time are tempered. You know, we're just, you know, I'll embrace it when I see it, or I'll embrace possible when it's really possible. That said, I do think it's possible for a couple of reasons. Stanford is navigating this travel gauntlet, and it is a gauntlet going cross country 4 or 5 times. To play real good ACC teams in tough arenas. But Stanford won at North Carolina. That was the first time Stanford had ever beaten a Carolina program in 14 tries, even with the really good teams that I spoke of a couple decades ago. Now, you know, Carolina's got some stumbles. I think they stumbled last night. So maybe that's tempered a bit. But I think, you know, for me, it's possible. I'm conditioned not to talk about it, just, again, because I don't want to disappoint listeners or whatnot. But I do think it's a possible. Stanford has, on paper, easier home games than road. Stanford still has to go out to Duke, for example. But, you know, the Stanford team into the 20-win thing would be a huge uplift for people who follow the program. You know, that said, like you say, 69 net. 22, does it take 21 wins, 22 wins, 21 wins with a couple in the ACC tournament? I put it at a possible and leave it at that.
You know, you brought up the travel, and we've been talking about it with Syracuse this week because it's, you know, something new for them, flying across the country. They're going to be gone for 6 days. You know, they play Stanford tonight, they play Cal on Saturday, and then they come back and, you know, they got Duke a couple of days later, and that's a gauntlet for them, but they only have to do it once. You know, as you're saying, that, you know, Stanford's had to do it multiple times, and they've been very good at home. How much do you think that plays into, you know, their advantage at home and I guess their disadvantage on the road, the fact that the travel, how much does that play into college kids?
I'm still weighing it. I mean, I do feel like the teams that have come west have not quite looked like the teams I've seen on television. You know, we'll see with Syracuse in some of these games going forward. You know, for Stanford on the road, I've been impressed by Stanford's, you know, looking normal at some of these road venues. I mean, Stanford's roadies have been tough at Pitt, at Clemson, at Wake, and of course North Carolina, which Stanford won, but that was challenging. So I think everybody's been preparing for it mentally for a number of months, and so it's sort of like a tough exam. You know, it's going to be tough, but you apply yourself and you sort of get yourself ready so that when you actually dive into the thing, it's maybe not so bad. So I just think Stanford has trained itself now. You know, some of the other teams that have done this before, the men's team, the women's volleyball team, for example, said, you know, that 3rd and 4th and 5th trip when you start to feel it a little bit more. So, again, I think that's TBD, but so far so good.
You know, as you get ready for this game tonight and you look at Syracuse, what are your impressions of this Syracuse squad that you're going to see tonight?
Well, I've seen him a number of times. We know the center, Eddie Lampkin, Jr. at Colorado. In fact, last March, Maxime Renaud and he went up against one another. Renaud had 26 and 12. I think Lampkin had 11 and 6, but Colorado won fairly easily. That was an NCAA tournament team, really good. So, you know, Lampkin is a veteran. He knows Renaud, which a lot of these other folks in the ACC do not. And we'll see if that plays a little bit to Syracuse's advantage, at least the knowing of the tendencies that Lampkin would have. Starling, I think, is a terrific player. I don't think he's getting enough run. Those numbers are sort of first, second team ACC worthy, I think, at least at this point in the season. Chris Bell went to a school out here called De La Salle, which is a national powerhouse in football, but actually they're pretty good in state basketball too. He was then known as Chris Bunch. He's had a name change since then, but, you know, real good shooter. I know the ACC stats from last year, you know, 42% or whatever from 3, and maybe that was the full year stats for Chris Bell. So just a lot of pieces. They can play 10, athletic, I think the shooting has to be on for the Qs, and I think the defense has been up and down, but very capable that way with an Adrian Autry coach team. So, Stanford, I think, respects all these ACC teams. Again, it's part of getting ready for the season. The teams are good. For an older guy like me who remembers Syracuse from the 80s and the 90s, and for Washington and Georgetown and half-court shots for victories and stuff, I think there's been enough sort of lore passed down to understand that when Syracuse comes into Maples for the first time tonight, that's a big-name program that you got to play well against.
All right. We're all looking forward to it. 11 o'clock Eastern time tip, Syracuse and Stanford. John, we really do appreciate the time. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks for letting me on, guys. Nice to talk to you again.
All right. John Platz joining us here on the